This video is definitely gonna get spicy. The fundamental idea behind tier lists isn't a bad one. In fact, it's a very popular idea with good intention and merits behind it. Let's ask the question. Why would I want to invest my resources, time being the biggest one to so many of us, into something that is not going to perform as well as something else? Hence, tier lists. So this weekend I brewed a lot on this video's topic as I dipped my toes into Warframe again, which I definitely love this game to say the least, which made me think, ironically enough, a lot about Final Fantasy XIV and our tier lists. Sometimes the answer to a question, you just need to remove yourself from whatever context you're in, and then you're like, oh, Warframe is, honestly, packed with tier lists, and sometimes they make a lot of sense. Other times, not so much. Now, why it makes sense is that Warframe is also a game with a literal combinatorial explosions of builds, combos, mods. You have the Helmnet system, which allows you to replace abilities on your Warframe, and a lot of other factors that make combing over large swaths of data, those general statements that you might get through a tier list, super duper useful to help you drill your attention down to assess a few high value choices. Now on the flip side, making a general statement like X is factually better than Y is oversimplifying it to the point that it's untrue. Unless we're talking about Grendel, in which case, yeah. So to kind of break the context further and kind of show what I'm meaning at with a more tangible example that I think a lot of people will relate to is, bear with me for a moment because I'm going to give a real world example I encounter a lot personally and then tie it right back into tier lists in Final Fantasy XIV after. I'm often asked by friends, colleagues, acquaintances if I go out to events, and heaven knows I don't want to go out to them, that are basically looking at the field. As a senior software developer that even taught full stack software development, the glowing question, the question to ask, what programming language would you recommend me to learn or to use in general? Not even a particular use case, but in general, which is often loaded or framed in the bigger question, which is what language will get me the highest paying job? So I could give a cute knee-jerk reaction, which is also not necessarily the arbitrary truth, lathered in my own biases, and laugh at the idea of building a website around a fossil like PHP. Don't ask me to write PHP, I won't. Versus my genuine recommendations of something more modern like Python or Node with TypeScript or the .NET framework, which Microsoft really has stepped up their game. But did you note even there that I rattled off 3 big examples of things that I have had great experiences with that I could recommend wholeheartedly, and likewise 3 very different use cases for them. Like I've done enterprise level applications in .NET framework, but if you're asking me to do smaller scripts, I'm going to default to Python, like little things like, oh, rip out this data from this Excel sheet and process it. Oh my god, you're so fast at doing this, Cole. Wow, this is amazing. Even though that's not development work, technically. I don't know. When you're working, especially at a startup, you will sometimes get the most interesting tasks thrown at you. That's all I will say on that. But Python, I will also use if I'm wanting to do something with a deeper level of like machine learning, because we have an incredible library called TensorFlow. Now we can break into object-oriented versus functional programming versus do you want to have a front end written in TypeScript and a back end written in TypeScript, in which case React with like Node.js would be a fantastic example. But I'm going to cut off there. But even there, even just looking at the surface, you can see how that answer gets a lot more convoluted. And I recommend any of those wholeheartedly. I've used them all in industry in actual professional jobs. But dumping on PHP, as cute as that is, as clickbaity and as many views as you can get from that if you search it up on YouTube, that isn't reality. The real answer is that it depends on the market you're in, what your career goals are, and ultimately what you enjoy more. So the actual answer is a bit more convoluted and individualistic. Now hold that thought and let me make that concrete in terms of Final Fantasy XIV and even gaming in general. The real answer to your tier list, what you want in Final Fantasy XIV, depends on what sort of group you're in or group that you're looking for to say progress through Dragonsong War Ultimate in 6.1, aka that is the market that you're in. Your particular goals are going to be something like, oh, I really want to play a pure healer. Oh, I really want to tank it. Oh, I'm really interested in just learning it. These are all very valid goals and will lead you likewise to a different answer. Likewise, the one that just wants to clear it is probably just going to fill and flex, and they're going to have a whole lot of ramp up time to like learn whatever new job if they haven't played it before. Likewise, if you have that goal, that is your goal. Then in terms of the question of what you enjoy more, that is really what I center a lot of my videos around. It's just like, I won't give you a tier list on something. I will say, this is reasons why you might want to pick this, rather than say, oh my god, just quit everything unless you're playing warrior, because warrior has bloodwetting. So it breaks down into a plethora of categories within these things of what do you enjoy, such as do you enjoy a faster rotation or a slower one? Do you appreciate mobility abilities or not? Like, I really do value Dancer's and Avant, which is the 3 dashes, and I do value Bard's leap back with their bow. But I mean, if you don't care about that and you're gonna go on Machinist, you're just like, I don't care about an Avant. That's your choice to make and totally should make it. Or do you prefer being rooted down with casts more like a black mage, or be very mobile like a summoner? Do you want to give away some of your own personal DPS to buff allies, or keep all of that DPS to yourself? Maybe do you value helping the healers out of the party with abilities like the Summoner's Phoenix heal over time, or the Dancer's Curing Waltz, or their improvisation heals and barriers from that, or Reaper's Arcane Crest heal over time? Now I want to talk about use cases, which makes things actually easier to determine, much easier to determine what I would recommend or what I personally use where. Like, let's reel it back to Warframe. If I'm in a mission, like a spy mission, I will often go Wukong because I can dodge all of the traps and detection mechanisms and quickly burst through it. The speed is also absolutely insane. I also like Wukong because his first ability lets me summon a direct clone of myself that I can buff through the ceiling with Mirage's full Eclipse Helmet ability, which makes it morbidly, disgustingly effective at things like long defense arbitration missions, which that's a 300% damage buff. You bet that thing is gonna hit hard. Or take Necros, which is the frame that I default to whenever I'm farming materials for the bonus drops. Or my two mains, Oberon and Wisp, where with Wisp especially, I have turned myself essentially into a buff bot where I boost allies' health. I give them a powerful heal over time. I give them crowd control stun buffs for them. I give speed boosts. I even buff their damage with Rhino's roller helmet. Blech. I couldn't say that well. Basically, I doubled their damage on top of all the other buffs. That's what Rhino's roar is doing. The double. The other, it probably adds up to like even more. Even take the example, and it's been a few years, where I used to farm with my Rubico on Chroma to take down Eidolons, basically raid bosses, with ease and get loot. It was a great way to make plat back in the day. Or take Limbo, who is amazing on mobile defense missions to make things simply not exist. All of this adds up to context, context, context matters. What you are picking for a particular use case is so critical. If you just pull up like a general tier list, Oberon is terrible. Wisp is actually terrible because Wisp apparently doesn't have the survivability. If you're comparing her to something like Inaros or Rhino, of course she won't have to that level. Or Limbo. Limbo is everyone's, or at least it used to be, everyone's favorite frame to hate. On the missions where he shines, I don't think anything can compare. But cycling back to Final Fantasy XIV, I'll do the context of, let's say that you're needing to pick a ranged DPS. Let's not care, magical or physical, for the last DPS slot for your party. But now you're in the context of one party member is literally a 99th percentile parsing monster on Monk or Black Mage or whatever, and they're just blowing everyone out of the water. They are extremely high raid DPS. But your current magical range DPS is a Black Mage, not a Red Mage, not a Summoner, and so you don't have a backup revive to help progression. Given the highly cherry-picked example that I gave you, tell me, what is the right decision here? Is there even a right decision? And the answer to that is technically no. The obvious go-tos is Dancer to buff that one raid member, since you know that you will get absolutely insane value, right? Or should you be going Red Mage for the revive and the Embolden, because the Embolden can also buff them a bit, but nowhere near as close as Dancer. Let me not get that twisted. What if I added an extra piece of information here? Let's add the context of currently the group isn't making the DPS check from Enrage, and your Red Mage isn't necessarily the best. You aren't the most comfortable Red Mage. Let's say maybe you're comfortably parsing gay, so maybe it's the time now to change to that Dancer. But one thing that you are noticing in your time with this group, when you're hitting that Enrage, is that there is an excessive amount of deaths in the party due to mechanic failure, which is usually the case under any content under Ultimate, if I'm super honest. If you're hitting Enrage consistently, I have many friends who have farmed Ultimates though that would contest even that and say, you know what, even Ultimates can get away with this. I kind of get it, but I also don't know. Y'all can say that. I'm hesitant to say that. You guys can say that, not me. I only know because I will hear that on Discord that I'm very wrong. But speaking about my current purview of Savage and below, if you're not meeting the Enrage timer, you're generally making mechanic mistakes. But getting back to my point is, with that added context, with that current Enrage hit, Now what do you pick? Notice how context, as I added information, kept feeding you information, how you were probably like, well maybe this, well maybe that, well maybe I'd do this. I didn't even say the third option of play what you want to play yet, but that's another valid option. Maybe you'll do even better on the, and now you're not gonna be parsing gay on red mage, and now you're like parsing, I don't know, like purple on bard or something, and now you can maybe make up that DPS loss. Maybe. Now let's take a second scenario. Let's say that you do a lot of party finder. You are farming those extremes and your raid group does raid, but they don't always raid all the time, and they currently have you set on range physical DPS. Those who know will know. And so likewise, that is what you have geared, and that is like your best option to farm. So farming optimally, you'd likely lean to the same conclusion as me that I had to make in the past. As I said, those who know that I cannot necessarily depend on others to come into the party finder geared, aware of their rotation, and represent the buffs that I bring to the party, my DPS that I'm giving away to them in the form of buffs, that I can't trust them to represent that well, or like on Dancer. And so I default to Machinist to represent all of my own DPS contributions myself personally. Because peace and love, I can't expect like a party finder, someone that I have never even interacted with, to do as much DPS. It's not a narcissistic thing, it's called, I would expect people to do the same with me. If you're in a group with me and you don't know me, I would not expect you to be giving me buffs and be like, yeah, you're gonna do 99s with my like buffs. I'd be like, well, I appreciate the faith, but I do speak from experience on this one. If I'm on my Dancer doing more damage than the samurai I'm dancing with, I am going to regret my pick a lot, and I have, unfortunately, yes, and I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating, that has happened many a time. In fact, on extreme farming, I even had it where sometimes I was literally looking and at something that I'm not mentioning much on this channel, and I would see that a white mage was doing more DPS than the DPS, so I would optimally change partner to that white mage. Peace and love. So that's just yet another example of how context is everything. Now I want to add this final context, which I think really encapsulates the entire ideology of tier lists and why it's really risky to just make a general broad sweeping statement, such as Dark Knight is apparently really trash, and I should say Warrior right now is extremely, and I do mean extremely strong in dungeons compared to Dark Knight. That's true in dungeons, where the Warrior's Bloodwedding is, to be quite honest, unmatched in that setting. But people have extended that super specific niche context of like running an extreme roulette every day into raiding. Where we're talking about raiding, I can tell you that a Dark Knight with the Blackest Night, so that's a 25% barrier on an already big HP tank, with Oblation, 10% mitigation, with Dark Mind, which reduces magical damage by 20%, and it is up every 60 seconds, which is ridiculously low cooldown, makes Dark Knight genuinely a supremely powerful tank. Like if we're looking at P3S with the constant tank busters going out and out and out, and then you got post ads phase, and then you're also getting the ads damage, that is a lot of mitigation. Being able to swallow up that tank buster that easily is incredible. But if you followed that general tier list that were coming out from all these different social media outlets that, to be blunt, barely covered 14 until all of a sudden it became the cool thing to cover, they were saying Dark Knight is trash compared to Warrior, and then that extremely important fact that, hey, you know what, Dark Knight is actually really powerful in raid, especially in these situations, would be totally skipped over. Something like a Warrior is amazing at running expert roulette every day would be true, but something like Warrior is just the best tank overall, no. And you can even break it up and be like, okay, what's the best off tank? That's going to be Paladin. This leads me into the conclusion of the video, and just refreshing the two biggest points that will be much shorter because I've already mentioned them. Firstly, what do you enjoy? Freedom of mobility but still want revive? Hello, Summoner. Don't need revives, but want stupid amounts of mobility? Dancer. Nothing he says mobile is Dancer. You enjoy doing big dick DPS that absolutely no one can compete with and optimizing everything about your character? Well, Black Mage is currently absolutely demolishing the DPS list. The chances are is if you are enjoying what you're doing intrinsically, that you will excel at it beyond any specific tier list. At this point, I think that it's really clear that are tier lists necessarily a bad thing to want to know? No, absolutely not. That's a normal human condition of wanting to like not waste your time. But I think that when we're talking about things that are so general with no context, no niche, no extra information, that making broad sweeping generalizations is really not good. What you will have or should have recommended to you should be tailored to whatever situation you're in. That's it for this video. Take care everyone and have a great day.